Mr. Jafar Attai, thank you for being today with us in Marathon UTV.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay. Would you please elaborate on the key investments and risk drivers in Iraq's petroleum industry?
Yes, I think we have three. The first one is the global market. It's important what's happening in the global oil market. The second one is our relationship with external investors. I think we are more dependent on external investment. And the third is the policies and the steps that the Iraqi government and its foreign partners take in relation to the two things, in relation to the market and in relation to investment in the petroleum sector. So there's three drivers really. Just to elaborate and summarize, it is the global market, external investment and policies.
What is the major impact of Iraq and Iran on the Middle East markets?
Very significant and growing. And I think individually each of them has a very strong impact. Now, the extent to which they collude and work together itself is another possibility, and even the extent to which they work on opposite sides and have opposing views also is a major impact. So in any scenario you look, they're two very influential and probably the largest markets in the region, both collectively and individually.
What are the strengths and weaknesses of Iran and Iraq petroleum markets?
I think Iraq's strength is its reserve and its potential. It has one of the largest reserves and potentials in the world, if not the largest today. Its weaknesses is politics, and nobody knows what the Iraqi country or the Iraqi state is going to look like from now till next year, let alone from now until 5 years. So the strength is hydrocarbon reserve. The weakness is politics. I think in Iran's case, it has a similar strength. Iran has a very, very strong potential. To add to Iran's strength, it has a fairly stable, politically stable system. The weakness of Iran, I think, however, is maybe it is a victim of its own bureaucracy, and there's a very, very big red tape, and it's a large country, so the system can be extremely complex in terms of doing business and making investment in Iran.
Okay, last but not least, after the sanctions removed in Iran, what do you think this would affect the current business market between Iran and the Middle East?
I think there's two fundamental points here. First of all, I think Iran has got to understand a good learning curve. It has to go through a learning curve to understand how foreign investment works, how to interact with foreign investors, and there are signs that it's doing it. The second and most important, in my view, is Iran's relationship with Iraq. They've never had it so good. They are both in quite a good relationship, but they need to capitalize on this to do more joint ventures, more joint projects, and this is Iran's gateway to the Arab world.
Can you tell us what are the major challenges facing the energy sector?
Sure. In the Middle East, a lot of change is happening in both oil and gas, but one very bold change is that many of the countries who have been exporter of oil and gas are now becoming importer, and specifically we see that with LNG having started to be imported in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and soon we will have Bahrain joining this club, and Kuwait has already started. So it's a very interesting change in the region to see that the countries who have been an exporter are now importing, and this is a trend that has just started. It's going to be multiple times of the volumes of LNG that we see today coming to the region being imported by 2020 and increasing. And in our forecast, we see Saudi Arabia probably needing to import LNG sometime in the middle of next decade, or perhaps toward the end of next decade.
Question number 2. How fast do you think the supply and demand on LNG are growing?
Supply is rapidly growing. There is a huge potential in supply increase, as it was highlighted earlier today and also yesterday, that there are a lot of volumes coming out of the States looking for a home, finding a home to go to. But the demand growth has been slow recently. We believe that there is a potential to catch up with the increasing supply, but not as much as it's being offered. So I think we will see a little bit of an extended period of oversupply, but by 2023, 2024, we see the chance of the gap being closed and the demand growth to catch up. By 2030, perhaps we could see significant amount of demand increase, and we are approaching to double the size of LNG market. What we have today is perhaps close to 300 million ton, and we will see it to get to 400 and 500 million ton in the next decade or so.
How do you see the current situation of the energy supplying sector in the Middle East?
As I mentioned, one of the issues is that some of the traditional producers are now in need of importing because of the demand growth that has been accelerating in the region. Some of these countries have started to change gears from one fuel to the other, but if you look at the total energy demand, it's increasing because of the population increase, as well as these countries developing as we speak, and you see that the new airport hubs are emerging in these countries, Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, and everyone are either building new airports or expanding their existing. So the demand is increasing, but sometimes it's been a change in fuel. Iran has been transferring from oil to gas, so oil demand has been flat to declining in Iran, but it doesn't mean that Iran's energy demand. So energy demand is Middle East is in fact one of the fastest growing regions in terms of total demand.
There's a lot of markets in the region that is growing this fast. It keeps us on our toes, and at the end of the day, the public needs it. We have to supply them. So we will go out of our way from a perspective of ENOC to ensure that Dubai, as I said in the presentation, Dubai never needs. Whatever Dubai wants is going to get. Very simple. And we'll try our best.